Hi guys, can everyone hear me? Okay, so I hope you did justice to the name. My name is Prosper Otemuyiwa, and I'm from Nigeria. This is my first time in Russia, and I'm talking about Webpack. And yeah, Kiri was meant to speak in English, and then he started speaking in Russian, and I was like, okay, so am I going to speak in Russian too? So I'm still trying to learn how to speak Russian. You know, the alphabets are so different, and I'm learning. So I hope I can complete learning before I go back to Nigeria. Okay, so how many of you use Webpack? I know everybody, front end. All right, that's great. So I'm going to be talking about the latest, advantages in using Webpack 4. Webpack 4 was released some weeks ago, and there are a lot of benefits to using Webpack 4. So I'm just going to be talking about some of those things and how you can make your applications faster using Webpack. Just a brief introduction about myself. How many of you have watched Black Panther? Nobody. All right. Okay, I like to call myself an open sourcer. So you can find me on GitHub at UNICODE developer, pretty active in the open source space. And that's me there, just as a Nigerian prince, just so you know. And okay, I'm a Google developer expert in web technologies. What that simply means is Google recognizes you as an expert in web technologies, and I get to speak at events. I get to speak about Google technologies also. And then I'm a developer advocate, or I like to call myself that, because I'm from Nigeria, like I said earlier, and I'm very active in the developer community space. So I co-organize what you call Follow Africa, and Laravel Nigeria, Angola Nigeria, and there's also a new initiative I discussed with Sean about Webpack Africa. So, okay, technical problems in the technical talk. That's interesting. All right, Follow Africa is the largest developer community in Africa. It spans right now about 5 countries: Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya. Yes. So the aim of Follow Africa is to extend across different countries in Africa and get the same way you have Free Code Camp, right? Almost everybody knows Free Code Camp, and Free Code Camp has helped a lot of developers learn how to code, come together and all of that. That's what Follow Africa is trying to achieve. And we have some of the pictures of the events we've done. Then Laravel Nigeria is just, I love Laravel so much. So it's a community of Laravel developers coming together to learn how to use Laravel and become better. Same thing with Angular Nigeria and then Webpack Africa. So that's it about me. Yeah, and I'm a software engineer, just so you know. All right, so Webpack 4. So this is the first major release of Webpack that has a code name called Legato. And legato means something in music. It has something to do with notes. I'm not really a fan of studying music, so I might not be able to explain what that means. But the name was given to Webpack 4 by the Trivago team, and henceforth, other major versions of Webpack are going to be having different code names. So let's get into the meat of the talk. So please bring out your phones. How many of you are very active on Twitter? I would like you to tweet this. Right now. So if you are not on Twitter, you should sign up on Twitter right now and tweet this. It says, the pain that you've been feeling can't compare to the joy Webpack 4 brings. As UNICODE developer is lighting the fire. As UNICODE developer is my handle, my Twitter handle. So you can tweet it if you have your phones. Yeah, I wish I could just translate that in Russia. But that's okay. Are we done tweeting? Can I move? That was fast. Are you sure you're tweeting? All right. Okay. So the first major, the very first significant stuff you notice with Webpack 4 is that it's faster by default. And according to what people have been, people that have upgraded to the latest versions of Webpack, discovered that many of them are discovering that the applications that use Webpack 3, when they upgraded it to Webpack 4, it was almost 98% faster than the way it was before. So, and I did a test on my own. I just spun up a simple app with Webpack 3, and then I spun up another app with Webpack 4, and look at the time for the build. It took 2405 milliseconds for the first build using Webpack 3, and then this is Webpack 4. Now, if you look at the difference, that's almost times 2 faster than the Webpack 4 is times 2 faster, almost times 2 faster than the previous one. So if you run this on large code bases, it might not be up to 98% faster, but you're going to notice a significant increase in speed in the time it takes to build. So maybe 60%, 70%, 80%, depending on how large your application is. So that is one very significant change in Webpack 4. So if you have not upgraded to Webpack 4 now, it's time for you to try the upgrade and check and measure the time difference. How long does it take for your build to run with the previous application, and now they're using Webpack 4. Then second, if you are very active in the bundler space, you discover there is a new bundler called Parcel. How many of you have heard of Parcel? Yeah. So Parcel boasts of a zero config bundler, so you don't even have to spin up a config file. Everything has been done for you by default. And then the Webpack team came together and said, okay, if we want to increase the developer experience, we also need to provide something like this for users, for developers. Now, if there is something everybody has always complained about Webpack, is that Webpack is a beast. It is very difficult to use. It's very difficult to understand the code base. It's also very difficult to configure. So, imagine when people started using React, you discover before you have to configure Webpack manually, right? You have to do the webpack.config.js. You have to set up hot module reloading yourself before the Facebook team came up with Create React App. So almost everyone uses Create React App now, right, to set up a React app. And if you're setting up like an Angular app or a Vue.js app, you're already using the Angular CLI or the Vue CLI. Now, each of these CLIs use Webpack under the hood. So you as a developer does not have to worry about that, right? So imagine you're just trying to set up an application. You don't want to use Create React App. You don't want to use Vue CLI. You don't want to use Angular. You're just using your vanilla JS. But you need to use Webpack to be able to bundle some files. You don't need to go ahead and start creating your webpack.config.js file, because right now with Webpack 4 by default, this is what happens. You don't have to define anything. You don't even need a config file. So normally you have a webpack.config.js file. Now you don't need that, because by default, it looks into your directory, takes in the index.js file in your src directory as the default entry point. Okay? So it looks at the code there, and then normally, if you have a config.js file, you have to define the entry point. You also have to define the output, where it emits the bundle to. With Webpack 4, you don't need that. It takes src/index.js file as the default entry point. Then also, it emits to a folder called dist/main.js. So you don't have to configure that yourself. Upgrade to Webpack 4, just run Webpack, and then it takes this as the default. Now, if you do not have the src directory, for example, you named it something else, it will give you a warning, but you will see the warning in the console. Then you can create your src directory and just go ahead and use Webpack. So you don't have to configure anything, which I feel is pretty interesting, especially for newcomers in the industry. All right. So this is the warning it emits when you run Webpack without the config. So here I was running Webpack. I didn't have a src directory, so all I needed to do was I created a new directory, src, had an index.js file, and I ran Webpack again, and everything was working. No need for a webpack.config.js file. Now we also have better defaults. One very beautiful thing about Webpack is when you take a project that uses Webpack and you open the webpack.config.js file, you see so many things. And part of some of those things you might see might be what you call the Webpack performance budget, where you specify what the size of the bundle should look like. So when many developers commit code and you run Webpack, if your bundle is greater than maybe 2 MB or greater than 1 MB, it gives a warning. So the developers know, we need to look for a way to optimize this code base. Do we have to use code splitting? Do we have to look for a way to optimize the CSS file? Do we have to minify and all of those great things? Now, Webpack has what you call the mode option. Now, with the mode option, you have two. You have the production and the development. Now, this is what happens. You open your webpack.config.js file, you add the mode property, and then you specify whether you want development or production. So this is an example file. You have webpack.config.js. Look at the left-hand side, you have development. Look at the right-hand side, you have production. Now, this is what happens. This is an alternative way also of specifying the development and production. If you don't want to specify it this way, by using it in the config file, you come here and just put it as part of your build. So you can, when you run npm run build, you have it defaults to production, or when you run npm run dev, it defaults to development. Now, these are the options it provides for you. For the development option, this is what happens. If you look at the error messages by default, one problem I had with Angular back then was the error messages were not so explanatory. It was not explanatory enough, so you have to go down the rabbit hole to really figure out what's going on. So with Webpack 4, you have better runtime error messages, and then you also have a better tooling for the in-browser debugging. So you can really understand what's going on, what's going on with your code, which part of your code is being affected, and all of that good stuff. Now, for production, when you set the mode to production, it already assumes, you want to commit this. You are trying to commit the bundle. So it gives you a small output size, you have automatic faster code, and then it omits everything that it has to do with development. So all the stuff that it has to do with trying to give you an in-browser debugging, trying to make sure you have better error messages, it removes all of those stuff so that your bundle can be very small, and then you can have a faster build. So this, with Webpack 4, allows your bundle to be smaller, then it allows your build time to be faster. Now, this is very interesting. In the community, everybody has been talking about, WebAssembly, Rust, trying to mix that with JavaScript and all of that good stuff. And one good thing about Webpack 4 is that now it accommodates more module types. By default, JavaScript is a first-class citizen in Webpack, right? Because that's what we are trying to bundle. But with Webpack 4, you can now bundle more things apart from JavaScript. Now you can bundle a .json file. Now you can also write WebAssembly. So you can have a module, write WebAssembly code, and then import the WebAssembly code into your JavaScript. And then everything runs with Webpack. How beautiful is that? Because we are looking for more options to make our apps faster, right? You're trying to build faster apps. And these days, almost everything is built in JavaScript. In fact, everything. So if there is a way we could port WebAssembly code, or port C++ code, or Rust, right? And it can still work in our JavaScript code, why not? And Webpack 4 offers that option. This is what I like to call Webpack 4, the Airbnb of module types for optimal web performance. So now you have WebAssembly support. Now you have JSON support. Now you have different other module types apart from JavaScript. Right now, with the Webpack 4 that is released, it is still experimental because we just, the Webpack team tried to see how it works. So there might still be some bugs at the moment, but then it works. Now the plan is to make it stable before. By the time Webpack 5 is released, you have stable support for WebAssembly because you're still trying different options. But then, I'm going to show you something that is very interesting, especially for some of you that have done, how many of you use .NET here or C#? Very good, awesome. So I'm going to show you something interesting right now. So I was, on Twitter, because I tweet on a per second billing. Some people think I don't have a job because of that. But what I try to do is I try to keep up with the developer community because all the framework authors and library authors are always on Twitter. And people are always, having interesting debates and discussions about alternatives, for development. Now I saw this by my good friend, Michael. He works at a company called Andela. Andela is a company in Nigeria that outsources software developers to companies, in the US. Now, it said DLL in the browser. Immediately I saw this, I was like, what? How can you have DLL in the browser? Nah, this is not possible. And it said everything is tied together by Webpack. The robustness of Webpack is amazing, supporting even WebAssembly done with C#. I was like, this is not happening. This is a joke. How can you have DLL in the browser? How does this even work? And then I looked at the demo. And it actually worked. So this is what happened. There is a framework .NET has called, Blazor. Now, you can go to this link, maybe on your laptops or on your phone, but I think you should go with your laptop so that you can open Chrome DevTools and see what is actually happening. Now, on this demo, you have a simple app. Now, if you open Chrome DevTools, you will actually see all the files that are being outputted in the browser. Now, part of those files, you see a lot of system.dll files in the browser. And everything, all this is possible with Webpack, because Webpack brings the WebAssembly that is being written with C# and bundles everything together, and then you can have DLLs in the browser, which is just super amazing. In Nigeria, we believe in supernatural powers and, magic and stuff. So I don't know how it is here, but this is just magical. But everything with this happening is happening with Webpack 4. And then you can imagine how Webpack 5 will look like with what is happening right now. So I implore you guys to test it out yourself, see how it works. You go to GitHub and check out the code, see how the WebAssembly was written and how everything was bundled with Webpack 4, because this is really interesting. In fact, we are in interesting times right now in the development world. So another feature that Webpack 4 comes with is JSON tree shaking. I mean, you are familiar with tree shaking, right? You have a piece of JavaScript code, and then you have a lot of exports, but you are not using everything. And a very good example is Lodash. Before now, you just import all of Lodash, right? And then you are using probably two array functions. Meanwhile, you are importing everything. So when you load that in a bundle, it's importing everything in Lodash. Meanwhile, you just need maybe 2 functions or just 1 function, right? Now, with Webpack 4, it's possible for you to have what you call JSON tree shaking. So you have a long JSON file, maybe a list of cities or a list of towns, but then you just need just one key from that JSON file, right? So you can import that from the JSON file, and then when Webpack bundles everything, this is what happens. So this is a sample JSON file, details.json that I wrote, right? You have succeed, failure, and journey. But when I bundle this with Webpack 4, because what I did was in my JavaScript code, I imported succeed from this file. With Webpack 4, this is the output. It is only success that you see in the bundle. So failure, journey is nowhere to be found. So what it did is it took JSON as a file, it shook it, and said, it's only success this guy needs, and it bundled success out for me. So in production, the only thing that is in the bundle is what? Is success, after shaking Webpack 4. Is that not interesting? Very, very interesting. So let's move on. Now with Webpack 4, we have what we call a new plugin system. Okay? So if you are, I don't know if any of you have authored loaders here or plugins with Webpack, but the beauty of Webpack is that it's extensible, right? So you have different plugins. You have the extract text Webpack plugin, you have the HTML Webpack plugin, you have the image, plugin, trying to just, minify all these files and bundle them in a way that it's light in the browser. Now, because we are getting to a point where we need our apps to be faster, the Webpack team came up. In fact, Tobias, who is the core engineer of Webpack, looked at the existing plugin system and said, oh, this can be better, right? The performance is not as great as it should be. But with the new features we have in JavaScript, right? We have ES7, ES8, right now that a lot of people are trying out. Let's look for how to make the plugin system better. So this is what it did. Right now, the hooks are monomorphic. I mean, if you understand what polymorphism is, then you understand monomorphism here. And another technique he used was what he called lazy compiling, and then he upgraded the source code to make use of new APIs, new JavaScript APIs, so that the plugin, now this is what happens in the plugin. When you want to build a new plugin using Webpack 4, you have to provide a name. You also have to register the hooks by creating a new hook object. I'm sorry I didn't put the code example here, but when I was trying to put it in the slide, it was not clear enough. So I just said I will use only text. And also the hooks object houses all hooks as property of the plugin class. Now, when you create the plugin this way, it makes the plugin faster. And one thing about the plugin is that it hooks into different phases of the Webpack cycle when it starts compiling. So it just makes everything faster, and it makes the code also cleaner. Now, if you understand how Webpack works, okay, if you understand how Webpack works, you discover that, you have what you call a graph, a chunk graph. So when Webpack gets all your files, your JavaScript files, your JSON files and everything, and tries to bundle, it tries to construct a graph. And then we have what you call the chunk graph, right? Now, before now, we had what you call common chunk plugin that helps us to, that helps us in the construction of the chunk graphs, and then you have the different groups that it splits. But because, like I said, you're always looking for a way to make it better and faster, this chunks plugin has not only been deprecated, but it has also been killed. So RIP to this chunk plugin, because right now we have what you call the split chunks plugin. Now, the split chunks plugin is not something that you use as a plugin, but it's part of the Webpack core. So what it provides to you as a user, which is the developer, is these two API methods. You have the optimization.split chunks, and you have the optimization.runtime chunk. So what this does is it helps you to split your chunks better, right? Now, when you use Webpack, you have a bundle, then you have the hashing that happens, right? Now, sometimes you just don't want one bundle. You want different bundles with different hashes. So with these new API methods, you can achieve that better and faster. So now I've discussed, the major features of Webpack 4, but something interesting happened before Webpack 4.0 was released to the public. A very amazing JavaScript developer on the Google Chrome team came up with what you call Webpack plugin profiling. Now, if you are crazy about performance like I am, every time you run your web app, every time you run your bundle, you're always looking for ways to make your bundle smaller and making your app faster. And I'm so crazy about performance because I live in Lagos, Nigeria, in Africa. The network, internet, you come to Russia here, the network is so fast, like it's so good. You just go to webpack.com or you go to google.com. Before you say jack, pew, very fast. But then in Lagos, I don't have the luxury of a fast internet. I'm running on 1 Mbps, 2 Mbps. Everything is slow by default, right? So I'm looking for ways, as we are building apps, we're looking for ways to make it really, really fast. So all this stuff like code splitting, using Webpack 4 is, we are very passionate about things like that, really. So with this Webpack plugin profiling, this is what happens. In your Chrome developer tools, with this plugin profiling, this is what happens. When you run Webpack with some plugins, right? You have all these plugins, and then you look at the bundle, the final size of the bundle, and you're looking for ways to optimize it. You're looking for what plugin is causing, a particular part of your app to be slow. With this Webpack profiling, from the Google Chrome browser, you can actually identify the plugin that is making your app slow. So look at the tree. Look at the different plugins that was used in this build, right? Now you can see between this time and this time, that this plugin is what it's running between this time and this time. This is what is causing this place to be slow. This is what is causing it to be fast. So with that Webpack profiling, on Google Chrome, it's only available for Google Chrome right now. Maybe somebody will come up with one that will work for Firefox or any of the major browsers like Microsoft Edge. But right now, on Google Chrome, you can actually look at your build, run it, and see the plugins that are taking your CPU time. Then you can know how to optimize, which is very fantastic in my opinion. So this was the PR that was submitted. In your free time, you can go to the Webpack repository on GitHub, and you can check it. And you can, there's a very interesting discussion and debate under this GitHub issue, so you can understand how it works better. So, right now, one thing about upgrades in the community is some people are fast with their upgrades, some people are not. So right now, when you go to like Vue CLI and the Create React app, they've not really upgraded to Webpack 4 yet, but Dan Abramov tweeted something about Create React app, So very soon we are optimistic that Create React app will be running on Webpack 4, and also Sean Larkin, worked with the Angular CLI team. Angular CLI team now I think is using Webpack 4, and I think the Vue CLI team too might upgrade to Webpack 4 very soon. Then also people like Preact might upgrade very soon. So everybody is upgraded to Webpack 4. If you're not using Webpack 4 yet, I think you should try it out because of the interesting things that it has to offer. So what's available to Webpack 5? I know my time is almost up, so I'll just summarize this. Now, Webpack 5, this is what people are thinking about. This is what the Webpack team is thinking about. What if we have what you call CSS code splitting? I mean, we have JavaScript code splitting, right? What if you have the same thing for CSS? Because CSS is almost like a full-blown language right now, right? We have functions, we have variables, we have all those things that was not available when I started learning how to code. And I'm like, wow, CSS is a full-blown language. So what if we have CSS code splitting, where you can just incrementally load your CSS code as you need it in your browser, the same way you have JavaScript? So Webpack 5 is trying to take care of this. Then also module types. Imagine you can, CSS becomes a first-class citizen, or even HTML, where you don't have to use all these other plugins, but out of the box, you have HTML as a first-class citizen, as a module type. You treat CSS as a module type. You can achieve CSS code splitting. You can also do what you call multi-threaded builds. And then WebAssembly becomes very stable, so you can use as much WebAssembly as you want in your JavaScript application. Then also this module dispatch between build processes. Now, if this can be achieved, if you go to Webpack has what you call a voting process. So if you go to webpack.js.org/vote, you can actually vote for the features you want to be present in the next version of Webpack. So this is a very interesting feature that people are looking at right now. If this is achieved, then Webpack will be insanely faster, because once you run it the first time and you run it again, a one build will be so much faster because it can cache it effectively so that it doesn't run everything again. Do you get what I'm saying? So this is what the Webpack team is looking at for Webpack 5. And that's all for now. So this is me on the web. I'm on GitHub, I'm on Medium, I'm on CodePen. This is my handle. This is me on the left. I promise this is not my father, but this is a famous actor in Nigeria on the right. So if you want to ask me any questions, if you want to follow me, or you want to discuss about something, you can find me on the web at UNICODE Developer. So that's all I have for now. So I think it's time for questions.
Что, ребят, поднимайте руки. Можно спрашивать по-русски, ничего страшного, мы переведем. Ну? Что? Нет? Все понятно? Ну вот. Так, ты был первый, потом вот Андрюше передадим.
You can ask me if I like Russian food.
Я по-русски. Хотелось спросить, целиком ли осталась обратная совместимость с конфигом третьего веб-пака у четвертого?
Is it backwards compatible to Webpack 3 configuration?
Oh, okay, is it backward compatible?
Yeah, Webpack 3.
So it's partially backward compatible. But then one thing most people discover, when you upgrade to Webpack 4, you have to upgrade your plugins to the Webpack 4 version, because many of the plugins in Webpack 3 does not work with Webpack 4. Then one thing with Webpack 4 is Webpack 4 drops support for Node.js 4. So you have to use the Node.js version of greater than 6.0 for you to be able to enjoy Webpack 4.
Так, во-первых, не забудь надеть обратно перевод, потому что там переводят. Во-вторых, мысль была такая, то, что тебе... ну все, ок. Ага, вот.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for the talk. It was great. I have a question. I see you using Vue.js, right?
Yes.
I'm just wondering, how is it popular or not in your communities? Or it's just more React?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. I think in our communities right now, React is still very popular.
Okay.
React is everywhere. But Vue.js, after React, we have Vue.js, as the second most popular, framework being used. And the reason why we have that is because a lot of people still use jQuery.
Okay.
Yes, right? jQuery still powers a lot of websites, especially legacy systems. what am I even saying? Not legacy systems. A lot of people that are building new apps still use jQuery. So it's easier for people to transition from jQuery to Vue.js because of the way Vue.js works. Vue.js, on one file, you can just specify the data and, you're up and going. And the good thing about Vue.js is you don't have to separate your app as an API and as a single page application. You can just add Vue.js the same way you do jQuery with your app. So we still have React as the most popular, then followed by Vue.js in our community.
Do you have any preferences about what's better, React or Vue.js?
I don't know. I'm not going to go into that kind of war because it's a war. I think
it's just personal.
Well,
Андрей, дождись последнего доклада. Потерпи чуть-чуть. Чуть-чуть потерпи.
I don't know. Personally, I love React a lot. But in some cases, I don't use React because I feel it's heavy for that. So if I want to spin up a small application, I just quickly use Vue.js. But if I'm working with a team, we're trying to build like a big application. Most times we are using React.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Спасибо за доклад, очень интересно. Я буду на русском спрашивать. Вопрос по перформансу, где говорили, что он 2 раза начал быстрее собирать. А это относится только вот именно к JS-файлам? Или, например, если у меня в проекте больше стилей, всяких картинок, это значение как-то изменится вообще?
Is it vice faster for JS, or does it also affect like CSS and other assets?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So he said, okay, performance is better. Is it better just for JS, or does it also affect includes like CSS and other assets?
Oh, okay. So it affects CSS too because we have you have the extract text Webpack plugin. Then you also have the one for CSS that also helps you to concatenate and minify your CSS files. So Webpack 4, yeah, it affects everything.
На все аффектит. Все везде у
It
тебя
affects
будет.
everything.
Еще. Ребята, что, все уже перешли на 4-й Webpack? Уже все у всех летает. Ни у кого нет никаких проблем с плагинами. Вот сейчас есть возможность спросить про какой-нибудь плагин. У меня не работает HTML, как они там, называются, плагин, когда работает, да? Я хочу там... Что, next? Собачка next пишешь. Вот. Сейчас я что-нибудь новое узнаю.
Everything works well.
Okay, all right, that's great.
Ребят, смотрите, если вы стесняетесь, то в любом случае Проспер еще будет вот здесь. Отлично.
Привет, спасибо за доклад. У меня такой вопрос. Когда появится нормальная документация, ты не в курсе?
What?
Потому что она сейчас на сайте устаревшая, она идет для 3-го Webpack.
Okay, so first he said the talk was great, and then he asked when better docs are coming because now the docs are outdated.
Oh, okay. So right now, I first of all apologize for the delay in the docs. The Webpack team is still working on the migration guide from version 3 to version 4. So right now, where you, if you want to upgrade to version 4, you just go to medium.com/Webpack. So that's where you can see all the articles that Tobias has written, and also Sean released a small upgrade guide. Not an upgrade guide, it's just an article where you can see some of the things that you can change. And then, we are developers, so you can go to the github.com/Webpack, go to the release page, the major release, you'll see all the changes that you can make. But I promise you, I'm sure before the end of April, the migration guide will be up on the website, on the Webpack website.
Ходите в репозитории, читайте Medium, напишите сами, или дождитесь конца апреля, там где-нибудь так будет. Что еще?
Yeah, so that's the link.
Кто-нибудь еще, ребята?